Hello and welcome back to the channel. Can you imagine you spend your whole life preparing for one single event? Can you imagine you grow your hair for 7 years to reach your waist only to participate in one event? Can you imagine you diet for years and years to prepare yourself for one single event? Can you imagine you prepare your face, your body, your hair, and you prepare mentally for this one single event, and then you go and participate in the MissGrand International Beauty Contest, and you win the crown, and only to hand back the crown on the same night that you've won the crown? Today we're going to speak about Tay Siew Nain. And Tay Siew Nain was the winner of the MissGrand International Beauty Contest. She competed courageously, she competed fantastically, and only to hand back the crown immediately after she won it. So stay tuned for deeper insights into the envy, into the backstabbing, into the infighting, into the jealousy, and into the greed for money. Miss Tay Siew Nain participated in the MissGrand International competition. She won the second title of the MissGrand International competition. Let's take a look at this video that surfaced after the MissGrand International competition. So right after Tay Siew Nain won the title, she walked off stage and she entered the backstage area. And you can see clearly here, as soon as she enters the backstage area, she is surrounded by several men. And these men appear to be pulling and tugging at her. They immediately grab the crown off of her head. They immediately grab the winner's sash off of her body. And at least 3 to 4 men is tugging and pulling violently at her. This was completely unnecessary. What is this type of behavior? What is going on here? You can clearly see that Tay Siew Nain is distressed. What is happening with her is making her very uncomfortable. Several men tugging and pulling at her. And this is a scary situation. This is a scary situation for anybody to be in. This is completely unnecessary what is happening here. And let's dive deeper into what is going on here, what further transpired, and what type of conduct transpired inside of this organization. So it came out after the event, and Tay Siew Nain claimed that Myanmar supporters cast the majority of the votes. But the awards went to Thailand and other countries. This obviously made her very unhappy. Consequently, she decided to return her Crown Tiara title, citing unfair treatment, and she raised concerns about the transparency of the awards. Additionally, on the same night, we observed how They grabbed her and tugged her and grabbed the crown from her head. We also saw how they grabbed the winner's sash from the MissGrand International winner, Tay Siew Nain. A lot of strange things happened. A lot of strange things happened here. This must have been very, very upsetting for her. And how is it possible that someone can be treated like this? How is it possible that you are at a formal event and when you walk off backstage, people grab you, they pull you, they tug you around, and they immediately pull the crown off your head? How is this possible that this can happen? This is not supposed to happen. Not even in a normal working environment are people supposed to tug and pull around each other. Let's take a deeper look at what is going on here. So it came out later that one of the reasons for the drama, for the tears, for the unhappiness is that Mr. Hutu and Lewin alleged that the organization was offering the crown for an amount of $25,000. He is alleging that bribery is taking place. In specific, Hutu and Lewin also alleged that the organization had accepted money from Indonesian pageant officers in exchange for the crown. This is part of the overall issue here. Obviously, if this did happen, in fact, this is only an allegation at this point, but if this happened and contestants know that this is taking place, this is an obvious part of the emotional pressure that is put on them. And these things compound, you know. So actually, the truth is, if you look at what happened right here, the emotional pressure on Tay Siew Nain already commenced weeks and months prior to this event. The emotional pressure and the stress of knowing that potentially a bribe needs to be paid in order to get the crown is causing psychological distress for contestant. And the psychological distress already started here weeks and months before the event. Can you imagine? You are 17 years old, you prepared for this day your entire life, only to have this dream shattered by unethical requests for payments of $25,000 in order to obtain the crown. Imagine the amount of discontent and the disbelief that you can create in the mind of a 17-year-old. This is unbelievable. That this type of conduct occurred. It is an allegation that was made. So bear in mind, it is not proven yet, but why would the national director of the organization make such an allegation? Why would he make such an allegation if there's no truth in it? So what happened, there was immediate retaliation against this individual that made the allegation that there is bribery or the request for an amount of $25,000 in exchange for the crown. And the organization immediately imposed a lifetime ban on Mr. Hutu Ant Lewin for apparent lack of sportsmanship and business credibility. Very strange things that happened here, and you can see it is compounding events that caused Tay Siew Nain to start crying. So it is not only the activity or the event that happened at the Miss Grand International contest of the night, but it is also the emotional distress that started when she started having knowledge that bribery requests were made for the crown. So if this request was made weeks or months prior to the event, at this point this started causing emotional distress for Tay Sunain. Now, to continue, when the event was finished, Tay Sunain immediately handed back her crown, and she made a statement saying that she decided to walk away from this. She's handing back her crown, and she was not happy about the unfair treatment that was happening within the organization. And almost immediately there was retaliation against Tay Sunain, and there was abusive insults made against contestants, and also there was public humiliation of contestants in the media and also in social media, which was completely unacceptable and morally unacceptable. For example, public statements were made in relation to her saying that she is delusional. What makes her so delusional? Other things that was said was she can create her own pageant so she can win every title. Someone like her shouldn't participate in anything competitive or challenging others. Further emotionally inflaming statements was made saying that she should stay in her own imaginary, in fantasy world. And it continued. The continued statements, emotionally inflaming statements, continued afterwards, where things were said like, she is too young and she couldn't control herself and she lacks self-sufficiency with makeup and hair. Now, if we looked at Tay Sunain's performance during the MissGrand International contest, she competed courageously. She competed fantastically. She walked elegantly. She was in full control. She looked elegant. She looked fantastic. And every person needs a little bit of help. Every woman needs help when it comes to a great event like this. When a woman gets married or when a person goes to an event like this, you need help with the hair. You need help with all of the things happening around it. So to say that she lacked self-sufficiency with makeup and hair, every woman that is 17 years old know already how to do her own makeup. So this type of statements, these type of statements was intentionally made to be abusive towards her. We should never ever make fun of people when they go through a difficult time. We should never make fun of people when they start crying. You know, we all are human. We all have emotions. This was a very big event. She prepared for this for years and years. And if the outcome was not as she was expected, she was disappointed and she started crying. That's perfectly normal to cry. It is okay to cry. We must never make fun of people when they feel sad. We must never criticize someone when they fall. We must never criticize someone when they fail in something. It is perfectly human to express our emotions. And then to take that and to go and to make abusive statements in public and to go and make public humiliation of somebody that was crying or going through a difficult time was completely unethical behaviorism. Tell me, what do you think? Was it fair? Was it fair to make abusive statements towards her in the public and in social media? Write to me in the comments, what do you think? Is it okay to publicly humiliate contestants if they were a little bit emotional in the backstage area of the contest? Remember, Tae Soo-nan went backstage, and when she was backstage, she started feeling emotional and crying. So you write to me and tell me, what do you think? Write in the comments. Do you think it was fair to treat contestants in this way, to make abusive insults in a public environment and to publicly humiliate contestants for something that happened backstage? Now, it also appears as if they try to squeeze money out of the contestants. Yes, they try to get money out of the contestants. Certain responsible individuals failed to pay the licensing fees for the event. It was then reported that Tae Soo was requested that I must use part of my first runner-up money to pay for the MissGrand licensing fees. Now, can you imagine a young woman of 17 years old that's just starting out her career gets put under pressure on numerous fronts? The first front is when she was exposed to a $25,000 bribery request. $25,000 bribery request. Then later on, she's being put under pressure to pay the event licensing fees. She's a young woman of 17 years old, and now she's being put under pressure to pay entire events licensing fees. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the type of situation they pushed Tae Soo in? Making her pay for this, trying to make her pay for that. This is a massive amount of pressure that she was put under. You know? And when people are put under pressure financially, certain things start happening, you know. It is psychological duress that starts occurring, you know. People start getting anxiety. There's anxiety if you don't have the money required. Can you imagine? They request you pay $25,000 bribe for this, pay the licensing fees for that. It started having the effect of creating anxiety in her. For sure, it also had the effect of inducing stress. It is a lot of stress, you know. You are supposed to live your dream, to compete in this fantastic beauty contest. Now you're being pressured for money. You're being pressured for bribes. You're being pressured for licensing fees, etc., etc., etc. So all of these things, the pressure for money, for bribes, for licensing fees, the anxiety, the stress, all of it comes down and it builds up and it builds up and it's stacked on top of each other, and it could later on result into depression, a depressive state. And can you imagine the amount of disbelief that Tae Soo started getting in the event or the organization? So when she started crying on this evening, when she walked off stage, it is about much more. It's about much, much more than the event itself on that night, you know. It is all these things that stacked up and stacked up and stacked up, all the pressure that she went through the whole period. So can you imagine what these young women are going through just for that crown? So you can see there's a clear pattern here. There's a clear pattern here of putting pressure on these young women on various fronts. The pressure was for money in certain cases. The pressure was for paying licensing fees in other cases. The pressure was to just shut up and comply. and just do what they tell you to do, you know. And the moment when Tae Soo went off stage, she handed back the crown. There was this immediate retaliation against her for daring to speak, for daring to stand up for herself. And you can see here was intentional using harmful words to cause harmful psychological pressure on the contestants. And you can see that was really intentional words. And these words were used to suppress the contestants from not speaking out, from not expressing their disappointment and their distaste. For example, Tae Soo raised a legitimate concern about the integrity of the selection process and the voting process. It is perfectly normal to raise a concern about that. It is perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal to raise a concern. She raised a concern about unfair treatment, right? And then she handed back her title, and then later on, the national directors claimed that there was this $25,000 bribe request for the crown. And the moment that happened, the personal insults and the personal harmful words were directed at Tae Soo. For example, intentionally using the word delusional. Intentionally using the words delusional, you know. You can clearly see here, this is an attempt to demonstrate that her mental integrity is compared, you know. It's clearly, you can see a clear pattern that they are attacking her mental integrity. They started attacking her physical beauty and ability, and then they attacked her ability to compete in terms of ambition and so forth. So all those three fronts, they immediately started attacking. For example, using words such as she's delusional, you know. Using those words were completely unnecessary. It's a 17-year-old woman. It's a 17-year-old woman. She is not used to this type of behavior, you know. It's a clear attempt to distract from the concerns that she have raised. It's a clear attempt to draw attention to her mental integrity, you know, and to talk nonsense about that. The second thing is to say she's living in her own imaginary fantasy world. You know, it's again striking at her mental integrity. This is striking at her mental integrity, you know, completely unnecessary. She has a right to raise concerns. Those concerns should be reviewed, you know. It can't just be left there and then attack her personally. The second thing is to say that she's lacking self-sufficiency with makeup and hair. You can see here is now an attack against her beauty and her ability to beautify herself, you know. This is an attempt to make her lose her self-confidence. You can see here they're trying to break her self-confidence. They're trying to break her self-confidence. And then to say things like she must never participate in these beauty contests. She should not participate in anything competitive. And this is to suppress her and to suppress her ambition, you know, from participating further, you know. So you can clearly see there was this uncalled for attack on three phases of Tae Soo, you know, her mental integrity, her beauty, and then her ambition, to trying to destroy her ambition, her beauty, her mental integrity, which was completely unnecessary. It was completely unnecessary. And I find it quite interesting that these types of intentional harmful words, you know, harmful words to cause psychological pressure on Tae-soo was used almost immediately after they raised the concerns about $25,000 bribery, after they raised concerns that the voting process and the selection process there seems to be deficient, you know. So I find it interesting that this happened immediately after they raised that, and I also found it interesting that they immediately banned the individual that raised concerns that there was a request for a $25,000 bribe. They banned this person for life from the MissGrand International beauty contest. So all these things you can see add up, and as you can see, it is event after event after event that put financial pressure on her. Event after event that put psychological pressure on her. It is the men, 3 to 4 men grabbing her as she walked off the stage, you know, tugging her from left to right, you know. It is all these things that stacked up and stacked up and stacked up over the weeks and over the months, and eventually when she went off that stage and she had this final release of, okay, it is over now, it is about much more than not winning the crown. It is about everything, all of these events that stacked up, the unfairness, the request for bribes, the request to pay the licensing fees, the attacks against her mental integrity, the attacks against her beauty, the attacks against her ambition. I mean, this is a 17-year-old woman. She's only 17 years old. Why is it necessary to attack her entire being for speaking one sentence? Question is, why? As you can see, they should have never, ever have taken that video backstage. They should never, ever have taken a video of the pain and the suffering that Tae-soo went through. They should not have recorded that, because the backstage area is an area where the contestants go to relax. It is an area where the contestants go to prepare. It is an area where the contestants go to get dressed. It is an area where the contestants communicate and they motivate each other. So the backstage area is an area that should have been protected. They should have never have taken a video there. They should never have taken that video and used that to attack Tae-soo. They should have never ever have taken that video and uploaded that to the public area and made fun and criticized Tae-soo. And they should never have taken a photo of Tae-soo where she was crying and where she was in pain and published that on the organization's website, and to say, look here, look at how she's crying, and make fun of her. That should never ever have happened. That should never ever have happened. This is a private area. I mean, can you imagine other videos were also taken perhaps of the contestants undressing or changing their clothes? Imagine that type of video comes out. Imagine that is going to come out. What type of issues will come out there then? Let's hope that never happened. You know? So the moral of the story is here. I think the people that took this private video of Tae-soo's pain and suffering backstage owes her an apology. The individuals that uploaded that video into the public arena showing her pain and her suffering owes her an apology. And I think there are many, many other people that owes Tae-soo an apology. I think it's important to remember we must never make fun of a person falling, and we must never make fun of a person trying to do something and then they fail. We must never criticize someone for failing. You don't know their circumstances and what they went through and what they had to endure. You don't know what they had to endure for weeks and months. Failure is not weakness. It is the mark of the ones who dared to try, like Tesu. There is no shame in trying. Don't fear failure, because not failure, but low aim and not trying is the shame. In great attempts, it is glorious even to fail. If you fall, you get back up. If you fall again, you get back up, and you get back up again, and you get back up. And remember, every fall carves a scar, but every rise builds armor. You don't come back the same, you come back stronger.